Hello, and welcome back to another Momversation of the Burnt Pancakes podcast, where I help moms realize that everyone burns their first pancake. Before I start today's Momversation, I want to tell you about an offer that I have been busy working on that I'm excited to share. So this is going to be specifically for all of you toddler moms who are thinking about potty training soon, or if you know someone who's thinking about potty training and maybe has nowhere to go for help, or if you've tried potty training and it's a disaster and you want to restart, but get it right this time. So I am a certified potty trainer. I work one-on-one with parents to get you through even the toughest potty training situations, but this offer is going to be a group class. So it's a fraction of the price of a one-on-one consultation, but you're still going to get all of the same information. And you're not going to have to read a 200-page book to learn it. So I am breaking up the potty training process into 4 live workshops. They'll take place on Thursday mornings, but they are totally recorded. So if you cannot attend live, all of these will be recorded for you to watch at your own time. Or if you do attend live and you want to look at them again later, you'll have access to that. So I'm breaking the potty training process into 4 workshops. You're going to be part of a community of moms who are going through this all together. So you are not doing it alone. And the bonus is you also get the 30 days of text messaging with me that my one-on-one clients do. So if you are interested in a live workshop to learn all about potty training, check the link in the description because the April workshop is going to start on April 18th. And I would love to have you there. I'm limiting the number of spots. So if you are interested, sign up today because you're going to have your child potty trained this summer and I'm going to help you do it. Okay, so on today's conversation, back to all of you who do not have to potty train this summer. I am speaking with Erin Roberts of Aligned Voice. She is a vocal confidence coach. You may not have heard of this before, but I was so honored to have her on and pick her brain all about what she does. So she helps to inspire women to create their most confident voices. As we were speaking and as I was kind of thinking of what I wanted to ask her, I realized there are so many situations in motherhood where we don't know how to speak up for ourselves. I can 100% admit in doctor's appointments when I was pregnant, in the birthing room, in a student parent teacher conference, learning how to speak up for ourselves, to advocate for ourselves as women or our children is really hard to do. And she gives all the pointers on how you can do this in a confident, mature way. I think you're going to love this conversation. I got so much out of it and am going to be using her tools up in the future. So please enjoy my conversation with Erin Roberts. Erin, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
I think this is going to be a really great topic, something that, gosh, I don't think I've ever had a guest on talking about our voice, but this is something that like we moms and we women definitely need to hear about. So you are a vocal confidence coach. Can you tell us like what that is and how you got started in that?
Yeah, absolutely. So vocal confidence coaching is a method for using our voice as a power source, really finding that belief within ourselves that our voice matters and what we have to say matters and what we have within us that we want to express has value. And that method really combines the technical aspects of how to use your voice, the mechanics of how the voice works, and that kind of draws more on my singing and my acting background, with the spiritual and the emotional elements of how the voice can be used as a power source for us.
So interesting. One question that just popped up in my mind, do you work more with women or men?
I actually work exclusively with women.
Okay. Because my
Yep.
first thought was when you said we're using our voice matters, I would think that women tend to have a harder time with that, like speaking up for ourselves, advocating for ourselves, because it's just not like
Yep.
the cultural norm for women to be vocal and loud and,
Mhm.
it comes
Yep.
across a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a part of the mission of why I started this brand. living in this world as a woman, that was definitely my experience, is that sometimes our communication is not valued in the same way as male communication is traditionally in the way our society is set up. And especially my experience of that was in professional situations. Professionally, I found that there seemed to be an unspoken difference in what a woman would have to offer in the professional space than what a man might have to offer in the same space. I do find also kind of, again, leaning towards that more spiritual side of the voice as a tool, as a more feminine energy, as a woman, as a feminine receptive energy, that receptive and that flowing energy can sometimes be misinterpreted as passive or as quiet or as smaller.
Mm.
um, which absolutely does not have to be the case. Feminine energy is equally as powerful as masculine energy. We have the yin and the yang of that. It's just kind of how we interpret that and how we get that message out. I think we are starting to see change in our society and how that feminine energy is interpreted. And I'm excited to be a part of that movement to move that forward. So yes, I do work exclusively with women. I love your podcast, and I found your podcast because I'm also a mom, and I think, yes, as mothers, we have so many opportunities to use our voice in new ways. I have a son who's 2.5, so I am a new-ish mom.
Okay.
And
You're in it. You're in it.
yes, I am deeply in the trenches right now.
Uh-huh.
And I was surprised, even though I've been a professional singer, a professional actor for 2 decades, I was still surprised at how challenged I was to use my voice in new ways, to communicate in ways that I didn't have to before. And those can be seen as challenges. Those can also be seen as opportunities. So it's been a wild ride.
Right.
Yes.
And when you reached out to me and said, I'm a vocal confidence coach, my first thoughts were, how do we learn to advocate for ourselves and use our voice as moms? Because, yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like becoming a mom was where it really got like, oh gosh, I need to speak up. I need to say, and I can say I am not good. That's not my strength. Like I tend to I'm a good listener. I don't like to stir the
Yeah.
pot.
Yeah.
So I came up with like a couple situations where I have noticed moms and myself specifically in general, um, where things are hard. So
Yeah.
let's just talk about like pregnancy and
Yeah.
doctors. How do you like? I had a hard time with my first, he was breech. And
Okay.
so I go into my appointment, they do like a little ultrasound. They're like, "Oh, your son's breech. Okay, well, we'll probably have a C-section." And it was like, "Wait, what?" Like,
Oh,
"Oh, this changes everything that I've thought for the last 30 some
yeah.
years. Like, I'm going to give birth."
Yeah.
And it was like I didn't know how to ask the questions. Or when she said,
Mhm.
"Well, I've delivered so many babies. We don't deliver breech babies. Like it's a C-section." She's like, "You can try and turn them, but I haven't
Mhm,
seen it
mhm.
work." So I'm sitting here listening to this professional that has all this experience. I'm not a
Yeah.
medical professional, but I didn't know how to be like, what are some options? Like, what do you think? It was very difficult to speak up for myself to a doctor.
Yep. Yeah, that's such a great question. So I love that you're asking this because again, I can relate to this so personally right now because I am also almost 6 months pregnant with my second.
Oh, congratulations.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Do you know
So
if it's
this
girl or boy, or are you waiting to find out?
I do know. Oh, I'm a plan ahead person. So we're having a girl. I
Oh,
definitely found out right
fun.
away.
That's
Yeah.
exciting. Well, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you so much. So yes, this is very top of mind for me because
Mhm.
I am right in the middle of I'm going to all of these appointments and I'm thinking about the experience that I had with my son and I'm thinking, well, okay, what would I have done differently and how can I capitalize on what I know now and maybe have a better experience for myself. My son was what did they call it? He measured small.
Okay.
And so they were concerned that there was intrauterine growth restriction. They were
So you
concerned.
hear this word and you're like, I don't even know what to say.
Yeah. Yep. So it's like I'm going along in this pregnancy and everything is textbook and everything is lovely. And then we get to week, 36 or 37, and they're like, oh, hey, surprise. He's way too small and there must be something really wrong with him. So we got to get him out of there right now.
Panic mode. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah. So I'm having a panic attack in the doctor's office. Um, like you said, this is not what I expected. This is not what I
Mhm.
envisioned. I'm terrified. Um, and I did not, like you, I did not know what to ask. I didn't know that I could speak up for myself.
Yes.
And if I could, what would that even look like? Because
Mhm.
I had not prepared. Um, so a big part of the method that I teach with my clients is we start with a belief, okay, and then we build skill, and then we prepare, and then we kind of continuously improve on that process. So I did not have the skill to know how to speak up for myself. I also hadn't prepared. I
Yeah.
hadn't thought ahead about, what are some potentials that I may have to speak about today, and how do I want to kind of visualize what that might be, or plan some keywords I might want to put into that conversation. And we can't plan ahead for everything. That's not realistic, but there are some, basic elements we can follow, and that's a part of what I teach. Um, so here I am with my doctor and terrified. I did not ask anything. I did not say, they said, well, we're going to induce you. And I felt, that mom intuition that they talk about. I just felt within my heart of hearts, I was like, my baby's fine. He's just small.
Mm.
He's
Yeah.
just he's a little baby. And to this day, he measures at 7%. He is a
Always
small
gonna be a little
baby.
guy.
Yeah, he is a small baby. So I just felt that this isn't necessary. Like, sure, we can induce him. I'm sure it'll be fine, but I don't think we need to. I think he's okay. And I really wanted to wait for him to come when he was ready to come. So we did the whole thing. It was horrific. Inductions are so difficult. And looking back on it now with some of this knowledge I've stepped into, and this belief I've stepped into about the power that I have to use my voice, I'm like, I could have asked a lot of questions there. I could have advocated for myself differently. So as I'm thinking ahead about my daughter, coming up, she may be small. That could be, a family genetic trait. My husband is of Filipino descent. There may be, some ethnic differences in how our babies measure and different things. So I'm thinking, if I were to find myself in a similar situation where I'm being told, well, she's small, we need to induce. Um, what I'm going to do this time differently, and what I would recommend to moms in situations with their doctors, is starting with a belief. And that belief is saying, do I believe that my doctor wants the best for me? Do I believe that I have power with my doctor to communicate and to have a discussion? Do I believe in my own kind of knowing, that mom intuition? Do I believe that I have something to value or to offer that is of value, to say, well, I'm really feeling that this is what I think the situation is, right? And that's so hard to do with professionals because we do value them. We're
Right.
paying them for
Right.
their expertise. We're paying them to say, okay, here's the facts, here's how we interpret that medically, and then here's the outcome we're gonna follow. um Also in that relationship, though, is they are a service provider and we are a customer. And I think sometimes we forget that because um, in our society, we definitely put doctors on a pedestal and we respect them so highly, which they deserve that. They're
Right.
highly trained professionals, um, and they're in a service industry. They are service providers, and we are paying them and we are the client. So we actually have the ultimate final say over, the outcome that we want. And that
Right.
can be difficult because, I mean, yes, like if you take my situation for an example, I could have said, okay, well, I'm going to deliver somewhere else then. I didn't want to deliver somewhere
Right.
else,
Right.
so I get that, it's a very gray area. It's not easy to just be like, okay, well, I'm out of here. I'm walking out.
Totally. And still, you do still trust the doctor. Like I still
Yeah.
trusted my doctor. I just wish I had like been able to have a more discussion about it, you know? Like I wish I could said like, well, tell me a little more about that. Like, what
Yeah.
am I going to expect if this happens, So,
Yeah, exactly. So again, that kind of comes back to the steps of the method. I think step one is belief that there's space for me, belief that I'm actually the client and I actually get the ultimate say. And I think standing in that power will set us at ease to go into that conversation. And then after the belief is the skill and saying, okay, what are some really basic scripts that I could use? Some like sentence starters.
mm.
I've taught in K-12 for a long time, so I'm a big
Oh,
fan of
same, same.
yes, I'm a big fan of sentence frames, and I
Okay.
actually
Yep. Yep.
use them. I use them in my personal life all the time, and I do have a module in my program that includes some scripts, some sentence starters. So what are some sentence starters, maybe 2 or 3 sentence starters I could plan the day before I go to my doctor to just have something to kind of feel like when that moment comes when I'm anxious and I'm like, oh, I don't know what to say, I
Yes.
have something. And I could even write those down on a piece of paper. As nerdy as that seems,
Not at all. Not at all.
or like kind of over the top, like, oh, you're really gonna like write yourself a script before you go to your doctor? Like, yes, I
Yes, I
am,
am. Yep.
because it helps me to be successful. Pull out a post-it note out of my purse and say, okay, here's my 3 sentence starters. I would rather do that and feel a little uncomfortable and get the information I need than walk out later and say, oh, I wish I would have asked this. Oh, I wish I would have
Uh-huh.
said that. That regret feeling for me is so painful. And I don't want to feel that. So I
Right.
would rather feel a little awkward with my little script paper than that regret feeling
Right.
later.
That happened to me the other day. I had my doctor's appointment. I'm like, oh, I need to ask him about, these things. I'll remember. Got home from
Yeah.
my appointment and I was like, oh, I asked him that one thing, but those other two, I was like, why didn't I just write that down or like put it in notes
Yeah.
on my phone? Like I should have just been like,
Yeah.
oh, I have these notes. I need to ask you. But sometimes you
Yep.
just get like stage fright when you're in there. You're like, ah, the
Yep.
doctor's here. I've been waiting an hour for him. And
Absolutely. You're in there, there's fluorescent lights. It's like that
Mhm.
environment is so anxiety inducing. And what I've learned about anxiety is that when those hormones, cortisol and adrenaline, start pumping through your brain, it actually shuts down your prefrontal cortex, which is where memory sits. It's where language sits. It's where all the things that we need to have a productive conversation, all of those get shut down.
No way.
Yeah.
That's why I forgot all
So
those questions.
exactly. So it's nobody's fault. It's
Yeah.
like that's a bigger force than what we can battle with. We can't go in there and be like, I'm going to willpower myself to remember this, to remember to say this. We can't willpower that. It's going to be gone because that part of our brain is shut off.
Yeah.
So again, that's why for me, relying on a script um, has really set me free in a lot of ways, is to have that piece of paper and have some talking points. And you know what? I'll even do it sometimes with my husband, with my own husband. you know,
Okay, you
as
be the
as
doctor. This is a different form of role play, right?
yes, exactly. Exactly. No, like if I have a topic that I want to bring up and maybe I'm feeling a little uneasy about how my husband will respond, even though that is the most intimate, close relationship I have, and there's so much safety there, there's still that, uneasiness of like, well, what is he going to respond with? And what if he doesn't like that idea? And I am really wanting to express and to get a certain result, I'm going to go ahead and bring that script in.
Yes. Okay. Let's switch from doctors to you're a new mom and you're
Yeah.
getting lots of unsolicited advice. I also thought of
Yeah.
just now comments on baby name that maybe
Oh,
like
yes.
people have opinions and they'll say things like, is it better to bite your tongue and not say anything? What happens with all those people bombarding us with their opinions?
Yes. Yes. I love this question. This is such a good one, because it gives us opportunities to practice a lot of different types of conversation scripts. It gives us opportunities to practice giving critical feedback, practice making requests, practice setting boundaries. This is like a gold mine for
And this is what like
communication.
moms need those first few weeks where people are
Yeah,
visiting and staying for 3 hours. Like,
yeah,
how do we speak when we're so tired?
yeah, absolutely. So I think again, this comes back to like step one, we're setting that belief of I'm going to stand in my power of knowing I have something to say and what I say matters equally as much as the other person in the conversation. We're equal partners in this conversation. Um, Also in that belief of knowing I am the mom and I have value and I have ideas. And I think it's hard, especially as a new mom. I mean, this was my experience with my son. It's like I hadn't done this before.
Mhm.
So I didn't, when people offered advice, I was like, well, maybe I should listen to it.
Right.
Maybe it is a good idea. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't have a basis of comparison here. I feel a lot differently now going into my second experience, but at that time, it's hard to know how much do I stay open versus how much do I set a boundary.
Right. Right.
So I think kind of setting that belief for yourself first and saying this is the communication I'm gonna allow in versus these kinds of communications I'm gonna not really feel open to those right now and I'm gonna set some boundaries around that. So I think, and then kind of moving into more of the skill place is like how do we script something or plan ahead for something that might occur. um I think if we are in a casual setting with a friend or an acquaintance or someone, and we're hit with a piece of advice that we weren't really expecting out of the blue. I think my suggestion on that is, kind of start soft and move more direct as needed. Kind of start soft with something like, let's say they're giving advice on breastfeeding. I don't know. And you've got a breastfeeding system that you love and you are happy with it. And you're like, I'm good. Saying something simple like, oh, thank you for sharing that perspective.
Hmm.
And then
It shuts it
silence.
down in a nice way.
Yeah. And then silence. Like there's no, like let that silence kind of stand, and if they want to say something more about it, that's on them. They can, right? And I think letting that uncomfortable silence happen is for me, that's uncomfortable because I'm like, oh well,
Same.
I don't want to make them feel bad,
Yes.
right? But what about me? Do I want to make me feel bad?
Right. Yeah.
No, I don't either. So kind of like being okay with, oh, thank you so much for sharing that. Drop the mic.
Right.
That's it.
Right. Yeah.
That we don't owe them anything else other than, oh, okay, I hadn't thought of that before. And it's over, right? I think after that point, if someone kind of continues to want to dig at
Mhm.
that, and it's like, oh, well, you kind of said, oh, thank you, and you left it, and they're like, well, I wanted more out of that, right? And they kind of
I want to
keep
see you do it
digging.
now.
Yeah, exactly. If they kind of keep digging at it, then I think, you can become a little bit more direct as you go. And you might add something like, um, you know, thanks so much for sharing that. I have a breastfeeding system that I really love, and I'm happy with how it is the way I'm doing it. So I'm not really open to trying a new way right now. But thanks for sharing. and kind of saying, make sure we're clearly saying, I'm not interested in trying that. Thank you. But thanks for sharing. Sort of like that positivity sandwich. Interesting. Love that you're offering that. There's a positive.
Mhm.
And then setting that boundary in the middle and saying, I have a system I like. I'm not open to new things right now. It's set, but thank you for sharing. There's the backside of the sandwich.
I love
So
that. Gosh, that's
yeah,
great. Great.
yeah.
Now, what happens if we do need help, but we don't know how to ask? Took me a very long time to say I needed help.
Yeah.
And it was probably like a breakdown in tears when it finally occurred, like, oh, I need help.
Yeah. Yeah. I can relate to that. So that's an interesting place to be. I think that's a big can of worms because we're looking at there's communication, there's voicing ourselves there, there's some voice issues there. There's some self-limiting belief there, or there's some looking at, well, why do I believe that I can do it all myself?
Yep. That was
Um,
100% me. Like, I should know how to do this. I can do it myself. And I
yep,
clearly
and
couldn't.
and why do we think that, and kind of digging a little bit,
Mhm.
that's where my expertise kind of ends, and that's more of maybe counseling or therapy session, is kind of digging into why are the reasons that I'm limiting myself here, and what's causing that.
Mhm.
um Looking at that belief and saying, okay, I'm ready to accept help. I deserve help. I'm not perfect and I'm not superwoman and I'm not going to be able to do all of this by myself. This reminds me of when I was very first time I was embarking on sleep training with my son.
Oh, fun. And there's lots of advice on that.
Oh
Lots
God.
of opinions.
It was just the worst
Oh,
experience
it's
on so
awful.
many levels. But I didn't, again, this is my first time. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. So I was like,
Mhm.
oh, I'll do it. I've read about this, and I have some ideas on, these are the steps and what to do. I'll just do the whole thing myself. Don't worry about it. Like, I'll just get up every single night a million times with him, and I
Uh-huh.
don't need anyone to help me.
Yes, yes. Yep, been
And I'm
there.
thinking this is going to be like maybe 2 to 3 days tops. It was months, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I
and kind
cannot
of
do
getting,
that for months.
yeah, kind of getting to the point and realizing, oh, this is a bigger deal than I thought. I need help, right?
Mhm.
So again, we're coming back to step one of the system is looking at the belief and saying, I'm ready to accept help. I believe that I deserve help.
Yeah,
I believe that I am a valuable person, even though I can't do it by myself. It doesn't change how valuable I am. It doesn't change how good of a mom I am,
yeah,
or how knowledgeable of a mom I am, or whatever that is. And then I think the skill part of using the voice is, again, coming back to, how do we want to say that in a way where we are we're being direct and we're keeping it simple. I think this is making requests can be really difficult for women, because again, we're kind of our feminine energy, we're kind of told that we need to be smaller, we need to keep our energy small. So by making a request and kind of trying to expand our energy, it's like, oh, well, we don't want to get too big. We don't want to ask for too much. So making requests can be really difficult for women. I have found that the simpler you keep it and the fewer words you use, the better. Saying something simple like, I'll use my sleep example. Saying something simple like, I'm having a hard time getting enough sleep with this new system. Can you please get up with him tonight instead of me? Again,
yeah.
silence. Like, that's
Mhm.
it. That's the end of the sentence. Can you please do X?
Right.
I'm needing some help. Can you please help me? And I think a lot of times what we'll do is we will pad that sentence with a lot of extra words that are actually minimizing the impact of it. We'll use things like apologies, and we'll say, I'm so sorry to ask you this, but
That was my first response. That was my first response. Yes.
yeah, I'm so sorry to have to bother your sleep, but could you please help me with?
Hmm.
That apology, it minimizes the impact and it devalues that we deserve sleep too, or we deserve the request that we're asking for. Or things like barters. Barters are also a low frequency voice habit. Like, well, I know that I said that I would do this all by myself, but maybe like, could I, offer to do some of your chores if you could help me with this? That would be an example of a barter. Or a minimizing. A minimizing is another way to kind of like um make that again, make that feminine energy smaller almost, make our request smaller, is to say something like, well, it's really not a big deal, but it would be great if you could help me with this. But if you can't, that's okay. Because I know that you're really busy. So if you
Mm,
can't, la 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 la, adding in all these like extra parts of the question that we don't even know if they're gonna think those things.
right. I like this. So be direct. Like
Hmm.
few
Yeah.
words, be direct. And I love that it's like
Yeah.
get to the root of why you feel that way. Because for
Yeah.
me, it was like, I am not a good mom if I can't do this on my own. But if I
Oh
just kind of
gosh.
like released that and said, no, I'm new at this. Everyone burns the first pancake, right?
Yeah,
I'm new at this.
exactly.
I don't have to know how to do it and I can get help and that's okay. So like knowing that and then being able to ask very directly, that would have
Yeah.
saved me 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
So
Set your
interesting.
belief. You set your belief, and then you use your skill to make that sentence short and simple and direct. And don't try to make it smaller. Just let it be and let that silence ring after you say it. Let that silence ring.
Mm,
And if they are uncomfortable with what you asked, that's for them to be uncomfortable. That's not for you. You
right.
don't have to worry about how they respond. That's their part of the side of the street. They get to decide how they're going to
Yeah.
respond. It's not up to you.
Why is silence so awkward? For me, awkward silence, like my husband and I joke about this all the time. It was, I think, our second date, we were driving in LA, so there was tons of traffic.
Mhm.
And his radio in his car didn't work. He was, 21, 22 years old. And I remember for a while, like we had nothing to say. I'm very good at fill in that silence. And I got to a
Yeah.
point where I was like, I have no other questions to ask. I can't talk. And it was just very quiet. Well, a little bit later, he was like, we were talking about that date. And he was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, wasn't it so nice that we could just sit in silence and be so
Mhm.
comfortable together?" And I was like, are you kidding me? In my head, I was like, what should oh my God, I need to say something. This is so
Mhm.
awkward. It's so quiet. But I'm like, for him,
Yep.
it was totally comfortable. For me, I'm like, it's awkward silence. Why do I need to hear something all the time to feel comfortable?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that I love that your husband was so
Feel
comfortable in
comfortable.
that. I
It's
think
like my
that's
broken
really
radio.
rare.
It's great.
Yeah, I think that's really rare. I think that's really unusual and maybe, I don't know, speaks to his comfortability with that. But um I think I think silence is very intimate.
Mm,
It's a very intimate space. Um and it kind of, because what it does is when you remove that verbal out of the moment, the verbal is almost like a buffer between you. If you think about, here's my energy, here's my conversation partner's energy, and the words that are being passed back and forth between us are almost kind of like a little buffer
hmm
and a little something to keep us a little separate so we're not so intimately connected,
Oh,
right?
interesting.
Yeah, and I think when we're silent, that buffer in the middle is gone. So we're in this moment where our energy is coming together.
Mm, that's really
And
interesting. Yeah.
I think with someone you don't know very well, especially, I do this all the time too. I love, of course, people like my husband, my children, my parents, I love being silent with them because we are already intimately connected.
Yes.
So that silence is like, it doesn't bother me in
Yeah.
the same way. But with like a new friend or a new acquaintance or maybe a colleague, that's very uncomfortable because I think that that space of letting our energies come together in such an intimate way
Yeah.
without the divider in between us, it's like, ooh, do I want to go into that space with this person that I don't know very well? Right?
Yeah.
It can feel very vulnerable because it's
Yeah.
like, oh, well, without that cover of the words, what if they really see me? What if they just see who I really am? Like, ooh, am I ready to show them that?
That is so interesting. I've never thought about that moment, but that like makes it so clear. So
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
Okay, let's switch gears and talk a little bit about a school situation I had.
yep.
So you said you have a background in education and teaching. What did you teach?
Yeah, so I have taught music and drama education in
Okay.
public schools
Okay.
for a long, long time.
So
And
you're
I've
in
taught,
the setting. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and I love teaching. To adults, to women. I love teaching online. I love teaching in person. I'm a natural teacher. I love that because, it uses the voice. It uses this instrument that I'm very passionate about. So I've taught music and drama education to all of the grades. I've taught, K through 12. My most recent position has been at the high school level. I really
Okay.
love working with teenagers.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I have a school background. I was a teacher for 17 years. So now that my kids are
Wow.
in school, I had the situation last year where my middle son, because of his birthday, he would have started kindergarten, like the cutoff date would put him in kindergarten like weeks after, just like 2 weeks after he turned 5. And he was
Okay.
in my gut, my mom gut was like, he's not ready. This is too early. I want to give him another year. I had even talked to the principal the year before about it, and she
Okay.
never said I couldn't do that. Well, then, it was time to enroll him. He was already 5. I needed to enroll him for the next school year. He would be 6 when he started. He got into the kindergarten school that I wanted. And then I got a call a month later, and they basically just said, "Hi, Mrs. Fensky. We got your son's application. And is there a reason why you're not putting him in first grade? Why did you put kindergarten? Because his birthday puts him in first grade." And I was like, "Well,
Mm,
he would be extremely young for the grade. He's not ready. I wanted to give him another year. I talked to the principal. So I went through
yeah,
all
yeah,
of
yeah.
that. And they're like, "Well, sorry, we don't do that. We go by birthday now." And it was kind of like cut and dry. And
Mm,
they were like, "We're gonna have to put him in first grade." And my first reaction was just to start crying, and which is
yeah.
not normally like me. I'm not like that, but I just felt helpless that I had no voice. I had no, and later I was able to hang up the phone and like I talked it through with my husband. We were able to like
Yeah.
work out something that did work, and we did put him in kindergarten, but I felt like I had no say, no voice.
Mm,
And I
mm.
didn't want to instantly I did start crying because it was very emotional to me because I could just like picture my little guy like this isn't right for
Yeah.
him. I know I'm a teacher. I know this is
Yeah.
not the right choice for him. But also I didn't want to instantly jump to the like defensive, like angry
Mm,
mom because these
yeah.
ladies, this is just what they do day to day. Like it's not
Yeah.
like they weren't taking it personal. So I went from like wanting to cry to picking up the phone the next time, like, who do I need to talk to get to the bottom of this? It's like,
Yeah.
how do you remain confident, um, true to what you believe without coming
Mm.
across like really mean and disrespectful? Because sometimes
Yeah.
that's your instant reaction when someone says something is to like, rah, like just come at
Yeah.
them. And it's like, how do you say it respectfully, but still have your strong truths behind it?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I think that circles back a little bit to something we talked about in the very beginning about that masculine and that feminine energy
Mhm.
of how communication is sort of societally acceptable. So I think that women, unfortunately, they get very we get put into one of two camps, and there's no gray area in between. We either get put into the passive camp
Mhm.
where we are keeping all of our thoughts to ourselves and we are keeping it small, or as a reaction to being there and hating it, we then passive aggressive, we get so resentful that we explode, and then um we become that archetype of the loud woman who is bitchy and who
Mhm.
is, oh, she's too much and she's such a diva, and neither of those camps are okay, by the way. Both
Yeah.
of them are like, oh, well, we don't like that. These really passive women, we don't like that. We really don't like women who are too aggressive
Yeah.
and who speak up too much. Um, and especially in professional situations, it's like it's so hard for women to get into leadership and be liked, right? It's like you can either be a leader or you can be liked as a woman. I think there's a lot of struggle. So we're in this place where we're this or that. We're opposite, we're contrast. There's no gray area in between for that space that you're talking about, where we can be a little bit of both. We can be soft, we can be receptive, we can listen, we can hold space for other people's ideas, but we can also have directness, and we can get the result that we came to get. We can get our point across. We can share our message. We can be true to ourselves. Um, so I think that gray area is, and I think, just to speak directly to the situation that you brought up, I think that my tool for when big emotions come up, which is very common.
Mhm.
I think many people would cry in that situation. I don't think that's unusual at all, because you cared a lot. I think it's coming back to that belief is, what do I believe about this conversation that I'm going into? And I think your belief was, this matters a lot to me. This
Yeah.
is really, really important to me. So when the conversation went away that you weren't expecting, a big emotion came out. And I think it sounds like you handled it really well, because it sounds like you kind of ended the phone call and you took a step back and you paused. And that would be my absolute number one tool for that, is when big emotions come out, that's time to pause. That's not time to try to fix or try to remedy a conversation. That's time to take a pause. And again, it's because when those big emotions come out, the prefrontal cortex has shut down.
Yes. That's totally what happened. I couldn't think straight.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you couldn't think of what to say next, because
Mhm.
that part of your brain wasn't working anymore. So it's time to say, and I have a whole module on this in my program as well, is how do we troubleshoot? Like, yes, we can prepare, we can plan ahead, but there's going to be things that come up that we haven't planned for. That's just real life.
Yep.
So when those moments happen, what do we do? And when big emotions are present, if it's anger, if it's sadness, if it's surprise, if it's anxiety, whatever it is, my suggestion is, keep a simple script ready to say that you need a pause, to say something along the lines of, okay, thanks for letting me know what the policy is. Um, I need some time to sit with that, or I need some time to process that, or I need some time to think about what you said. I'll call you back tomorrow, or I'll call you back next week, or I will, whatever the situation is that you're in, whatever deadline you have. Um, and just respectfully saying, this is what I need to take care of myself. I'm going to go do that. And no one can really argue with that, right?
Right.
no one no one
No.
can say, "Oh, no, you're upset. You're not
No,
upset."
keep talking. Tell us more.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we got to finish this
Make the
right now.
decision now. Yes.
And I think if someone does say that, that's absolutely a red flag. It's almost like a sales technique. It's like, if someone is saying that you have to buy it today, then that's not something you want to buy, right?
Right. Right.
If someone is telling you, I have to have a response right this second, that's on them. Like, then that's their problem. Then you can say, I'm not gonna be able to meet that for you, sorry. Like, that's not, that I
Right.
think when there's that immediacy, that's an immediate red flag that you're in a conversation with someone who also maybe doesn't have good skills or good boundaries.
Got it. I think this
So,
is so helpful for parents going into IEP meetings, like having a
yes.
plan for,
Mhm.
you are allowed to say, I just need a moment to think about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah,
ever have
absolutely.
scripts for people going in to buy a car? Like the car salesman, like whole talk. Do you ever work with people who are like, I'm going in to buy a car. I need to know how to negotiate or like plan that out. That
Yeah.
occurred to me when
Oh,
you were talking.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a really good question. I have never directly had a client ask me for that specific scenario. No, I have no. However, I think that what we're talking about here, the principles of what we're talking about, those can apply to
Apply.
just about anything,
Yeah.
right? Because if we think about let's use the situation you were in, it was a school related thing. It had nothing to do with sales. But if we really think about kind of the types of sentences that were flowing back and forth, it was almost like a sales situation in the way
Mhm.
that they were saying, here's my idea. I'm going to try to persuade you to go along with it.
Right.
Here's what I'm selling. I'm going to sell you first grade. And here's all the reasons why first grade is going to be great. And I'm going to try to sell you that and get you to buy that. It's so if you kind of think about it in that way, that's the persuasive tool, that was coming up
Mhm.
in that conversation.
Yeah.
Um, so so no, but I think that, sales, that type of old school sales tactics, I think it's a perfect example of if someone is telling you that you have to communicate right this second, that's not a communication that you want to be in. That's not an authentic communication where, just to use the brand name, we're not aligned. Those people that are selling you and it has to be right now, they're not aligned with like what they're truly trying to communicate. They're using manipulation, they're using bribes, they're using barters, they're using a lot of those low frequency habits that we talked about that I think are the principles of ineffective communication. So I think for me, I'm rarely in situations like that anymore. Trying to think of like the last time I was in like a hard sales situation. But I don't know, like even going to the mall sometimes there'll be like people with perfume
Yeah.
that like, that
Thank
want
you.
you
I'm
to
good.
like, yeah, exactly. And it's like that's an uncomfortable place for me to be. Like when I walk by them, I always try to just like not make
Don't
eye
make eye
contact and
contact.
just right, like walk as fast as I can past them because it's uncomfortable
Yeah.
to it's like I don't really want to have to reject a stranger right now. I
Right.
just want to be at the mall and enjoy myself. Um so it's kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna have to they're using an uncomfortably aggressive technique. So I'm gonna have to step in and set a boundary. I'm gonna have to protect my personal space a little bit and say, no, thank you, I'm not interested. And
Yeah.
just
I'm going to remember
again,
that when I'm going to the grocery store. There's always someone outside selling something, Other than those
it's
Girl
hard.
Scouts, I'll say it nicely. Oh, thank you.
Yes.
We have
Yeah,
plenty. Um,
exactly.
okay, another thing I thought of from looking through some of your content, this one's more about using your voice to manifest. And I thought of a book.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've read um, The Four Agreements. One of
Have-
one of the things in it is be impeccable with your words. Like really think about the words you're using. And this is where like I've kind of started to notice I taught for 17 years. Then I quit my job and here I am starting this potty training business and starting a podcast. And
Yeah.
when I first did it, people would be like, "Oh, what are you going to do?" And I'm like, "Well, I think I'm going to try seeing if I can help with potty training and I
Mhm,
might do
mhm,
a like I was very like passive about it. And I
mhm.
started realizing and I've just gotten better at this in like the last couple months when people ask me like, "Oh, what do you do?" Cuz people at baseball are like, "Oh, I'm a this. What do you do?" And you don't want to be
Mhm.
like, "Well, it's when you're a teacher, you just say, I'm a
Yeah.
teacher."
Yeah.
So I started
It's simple.
instead of being like less confident about it, I just go, "Oh, I have a potty training business and I host a podcast." Like I'm
Yes.
trying to manifest or use my
Yeah.
words to create what I want to happen. So is that something you
Yeah.
also teach people about?
Yes, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head right there is um like you, I have also been a student of manifestation techniques, and
Love
I've
it.
gotten,
Love it.
yeah, I've gone down the rabbit hole like the last year or
Same.
two. Like
Same. Same.
I'm reading the books,
Yeah,
I'm
yep.
listening
All
to
the
the
podcasts.
podcast.
Yep.
Yes, yeah.
I've got all my affirmations and my visions. Yep.
I love that. I love that you mentioned affirmations, because affirmations is a version of using the voice. If you think about the voice as how we express, an affirmation is a written communication. It's something that we're voicing out into written form. And so that's why when we hear people say at the beginning of the year, like if you write down your New Year's resolutions, they're much more likely to happen,
Yeah.
because if you are writing them, you're voicing them. You are voicing them out.
Your voice has
So
power. Yep.
absolutely, your voice has power. And what I've learned through putting this method together is that the head and the heart are really where our ideas for our life are born. You know, we feel something here. We have an idea in our head about, um, I am inspired to become a teacher. I'm inspired to start my own business. There's an idea. Or we have in our heart, I am feeling really drawn to wanting to start this business. I'm feeling a deep love and a passion for wanting to work for myself or whatever.
Hmm.
Those ideas and feelings, they're inside you. They're there. They don't come out until we speak them.
Mm.
And all of a sudden, once we've spoken it or written it down or whatever, once we've spoken it, it is now out there. It is now out in the world. So we've taken an idea that was nothing. We've
Mhm.
taken an idea from creation, and we've now made it into something real that's coming out into the world by speaking it. And so I think that's why the language of that one of the four agreements is be so impeccable with your language, is to really be thoughtful about what we're saying, because once you say it, it's going to start to become real.
Right. Kind of like, oh, my aching back, or oh, that's
Yep.
killing me. I've been really thoughtful about, I don't need to say those things. Like, oh, I
Yeah.
worked out today and my back feels like it, instead of, oh, my
Yeah.
aching back.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, for so many of us, I know there's a large movement of women entrepreneurs that are and moms who are realizing, I want something more flexible. I want to be able to be with my kids more. I would love to be able to, start this business and work for myself. Um, there's such a movement of women doing that. And I think to say, okay, I have this idea, here's my inspiration, here's my desire. I'm imagining what that future looks like. I'm imagining how it's going to feel 5 years from now when I'm
Yes.
successfully doing this
Yeah. I'm
thing.
feeling it right now. I did. Yep. My
Yeah.
successful business. Yes.
So say it to your friend at the baseball game. Say it as though it's already happened.
Yes.
Say it as though it's already happening. Say it as though I'm my 5 years in the future self. I'm future Katie. I'm
Hmm.
going to say, yeah, I have a potty training business. I teach people how to potty train their kids. And even though we know in the background, I mean, I'm like, 8 months into starting my brand, right? So
Uh-huh.
I'm in the very beginning stages as
Yes.
well. And sometimes I feel like, well, when someone asks me, I'm like, well, I'm starting this and I'm starting out and I'm dabbling in da da da. And I'm
Hmm.
like, no, because that's what I'm going to create then.
Right.
Do I want to dabble? No. I want to create this program that I want to share, and I'm passionate about sharing that with women. And so I'm going to say that instead.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
going to say, or even like with our kids, right? I'm, deeply in the terrible twos and the tantrums and all of that good stuff,
Yep.
right? So when I'm in that moment, I want to say something really clear to my son. I want to say, "Oh, you're feeling this," or tell me about your big feeling. right? I want to say, I want to manifest using positive psychology. Like, oh, um, or like let's say potty training. I'm not yet potty training my son, and I do want to I want
I'm
to take a
here.
look
I'm
at
here.
yeah, take a look at your resources for that for sure. But when we get to that point, it's we want to be using positive words. We want to say, you can do it.
Yes.
We
Yes.
are learning to use the potty. We are using the potty.
Hmm.
Not, oh, are you gonna use the potty and are you not sure and da da da. Like we wouldn't want to project that unsureness out to our children.
Oh my God, that totally reminds me of my absolute favorite swimming coach. So my kids went to like a swimming, he's actually a former Olympian into swimming, but he
Oh.
is so good with, he's so great with kids, but he would always say, like, he would give a little talk to the parents afterwards. He's like, your kids might say, I'm scared to go. I don't want to go. And he's like, do not give that any value. Don't say, why are you
Mm,
scared? Tell me about it. He just goes, well, today we're going to swimming lessons. He's like, I don't, and I say that with potty train too. Don't ever say, are you scared? Just say, I
mm,
know this is new for you. This is a different experience for you. You've never done this before, but we're going to do it together. Um, and he
yeah.
always, I remember they would finish doing their thing. They'd be like sobbing, my face is wet. "Ah," and he said, I want you to say, I did it. And they'd be like, "Ah," and he's like, say, I did it. And they'd be like, I did it. And he's like, awesome. Moving on to the next kid. But as the days went
Yeah.
on, afterwards, they'd be like, I did it. And you were like, this man is a genius. He's so, but
Yeah.
it was his words. He was getting them to use their words.
Yeah. In sports psychology, I'm not an athlete. I've really never been in the world of sports much, but sports psychology, again, it's those principles that are the same as any field of study or any, industry of career or whatever, even relationships. Sports psychology is so brilliant because they use the quantum mechanics and the manifestation theory that we're talking about.
Mhm.
It's all the same things. They're visualizing, right? The
Yep.
Olympians that like
The future
visualize
medal
themselves
going down that hill. Yeah.
making the touchdown, whatever it is, they're visualizing, they're using that tool, they're using the spoken tools, the voice tools, they're doing all of those things. We can copy that, we can use that in everyday situations. We can visualize ourselves going to the doctor or going into a tough conversation with our IEP case manager. We can visualize that going well. We can visualize ourselves saying the thing that we really want to say. And showing our children that tool as well, like you
Right.
said. And I there have been moments with my son where, he'll express something and it'll be a negative or a I'm scared about or I don't want to do XYZ. And I think you're absolutely right, is just we don't give that any energy.
Hmm.
It's not that we say, oh, you're wrong. We don't
Right.
need
Or
to
we're
can
not valuing their feelings.
yes, yes, yes. We're
Like
not
I tell parents
canceling.
potty training all the time. Like, yes, they feel scared. This is totally new. You don't
Mhm.
have to not understand that and avoid it, but we can help you
Sure.
work through it. And you know it's safe. Like, a little potty is a safe place to go and it's acceptable. So we have to help them work through that feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. Validate their feeling, keep that brief and then move
Mhm.
on and don't give it further energy. Because I
Right.
think when we give it the further energy, let's say next time they're going to sit on the potty or my son right now, we're gonna be transitioning him into a twin size bed.
Mhm.
So you know, if he expresses most of the time he seems excited, which I'm like, yay, let's go with that.
Hope for the best, right?
Yeah, hope for the best.
Visualize him sleeping really well.
Exactly. But on the off moments where he might express a little bit of concern over it, I don't want to feed that.
Yes. Yeah.
Whatever we give energy to is just going to grow. So we validate it. We say, I hear you. We validate and then moving on and then creating a positive. Because whatever we say about the bed, um, I'm gonna, like you said, I'm gonna be very careful with what I say about it.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, this is so exciting. We have something new to try. Look at this beautiful new bed, and you can
Mhm.
jump on it, and it's really squishy, and isn't that fun?
Plenty of room for all your animals. You have given us so many amazing nuggets. Like I feel like we're just like bouncing all over because I'm like, I have so many questions, but I feel
Yeah.
like this method you can use for job interviews, as a
Mhm.
mom in the classroom, just so many things, gosh, that everyone can use. Tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about Align Voice, how we can find you, and what kind of programs you have.
Yep. Yes, aligned voice. I am on
Your incredibly
Instagram.
successful business, right?
Yeah, exactly. I am an amazing business with incredible things to offer. I'm excited to meet women who are looking forward to doing this work.
Okay.
I would love to hear from any women who are interested in using these tools with their kids, with their spouse, with school situations, with work situations, whatever the case may be. Right now, I am offering a program where we have, it's called Vocally Empowered, and we have the self-paced module portion of it, which is kind of like your blueprint for learning the skills, learning the techniques. And that package also comes with 6 months of group coaching calls, which are live with me in a small group of women.
Awesome.
Yeah, I to me, that's my favorite part of facilitating this
Mhm.
program is the group work. Because using our voice is a skill that we cannot do in a vacuum.
Yes. Yes.
As much as I would love to, my introverted side is like, I would love to just be by myself and practice this alone and not feel vulnerable. The work really gets the best results when we have peers to rehearse in front of
Mm.
and a safe space to practice the conversation that you're going to go have with your doctor and have a place to make mistakes and feel anxious and start over and try it again. And everyone is there
Everyone's
supporting
doing it
you.
at the same time. That is so interesting because I had this idea for the podcast. I think it was 2021. 2021 is when I was like, I think I need to start, my heart, it just said, I need to start a podcast.
Yeah.
And I had told my husband, I had told my best friend, but it had just been like, I can't get it going. I'm not sure. I joined a mastermind last January and they said, okay, what are your goals? What do you want from your business? And I was like, I
Yeah.
want to start a podcast. Started my podcast before that mastermind even ended. I think because I actually
Yes.
said it out loud
Yep.
to people, not just my husband, like he's always
Yep.
supportive. But it was like
Yep.
saying out loud to a group of supportive women was like the kick I needed to do it. So I love that you have those small groups that women can be a part of.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a key to the transformation. And I really love I love watching women go through the transformation
I bet you
of
see a
re
huge change in like confidence and
Mhm.
self-esteem. Oh, that's awesome. Well, I love what you do. And I feel like this gave me so much to think about and prepare. I just love, 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 love what you do. So thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor. You're a joy to talk to, and you're a beautiful communicator. So,
Oh, well,
um,
thank you.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. So, absolutely, podcasting and using your voice is clearly one of your gifts.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much to Erin for coming on this podcast. I all of you seek her out because this is really something that moms need to be exposed to. Like, who knew that the way you speak or the way you can prepare going into an important meeting can make such a difference? So, I'm going to be working on using my voice and advocating for myself and my family. Um, Thank you so much for joining me again on another Friday Conversation. I love sharing these with you. I love our burnt pancakes community that we're forming. So if you get a chance this week, come over and say hello to me on social media at Burnt Pancakes with Katie. And until then, I want to remind you that everyone burns their first pancakes. So just keep flipping.